Hello, my name is Tsanko Tsanev and this is my final presentation for A3D, where I'm going to talk about the whole process of creating the project, how it all started, problems that I faced during the 12 weeks, and how I managed to fix them. I don't know exactly what I wanted to do. I had a couple of ideas, but nothing serious. I knew I wanted to do an environment because in the future I aim to be an environment artist. I didn't know if I wanted to do something exterior or some sort of interior. My first idea, influenced by one of the other students in the course, was to do an interior project, like an apartment of some sort. I like that idea because that way you don't have to worry about the environment surrounding everything else, like buildings, for instance, or you don't have to worry about foliage at all. What I disliked about it was that an interior environment needs a lot of props to fill the space and the whole thing to feel right. Thinking more about that, I convinced myself that I prefer doing an exterior environment. The other idea that I had, and the one that I did and it stuck, was to do an old Greek amphitheater. One of the reasons I decided to go with that was that I studied architecture for 5 years and I wanted to do something related to architecture. The other reason, and probably the main reason I did it, was of this amphitheater that is my hometown. It was my inspiration, and somehow I felt that it would be nice to do something related to where I was from. As you can see, those pictures are part of my mood board, and those pictures I used for the scene creation. What I'm showing you now is part of my alpha and the blockout. The idea was to create the amphitheater surrounded by nature, like mountains or forests for example, because I thought that if it was in an urban area, it just wouldn't look right. I then started modeling everything in UE4 for the blockout, so I can have a basic understanding of how the level would look like. We had the option to use matinees to make a basic showreel for the alpha, but I decided that I don't want to do it at this point. After creating the basic blockout in UE4, I started modeling and UVing everything in Maya. What I struggled the most at this point of the project was modeling the seating of the amphitheater. And this is why you can't see very little of it in my scene. The reason being that I struggled with it was that it had a large amount of faces, making it hard to UV. To this moment it still has some overlapping light maps in UE4, but you just can't see them. After all the modeling was done, it was time for the next step, and this was texturing. Personally, I am bad with texturing, but luckily for me, we got this new software installed in the labs called Sumbition Painter. It honestly saved my life. You can add your models directly in the program and paint on them. You also have a large variety of materials to choose from, so you don't have to make your own materials. But if you do want to make your own materials, there is another program called Sumbition Designer in which you can create basically every material. I tried doing that, but I found it too complicated, so I stuck with the materials that I have in Sumbition Painter. It even exports every kind of texture that you do and you need, like ambient textures, normal textures, roughness maps, and metallic maps. I know others from the course used Quixel instead, but I found this easier to use than Quixel because I used Quixel last year for one of my projects, and using this instead of Quixel is so much easier. And using Sumbition Painter, it's honestly saved me a lot of time, but I really didn't benefit from it. I'll talk about this later on in the video. After putting every model, every texture, creating all the materials with the right textures and putting them on the right models in Unreal Engine, I started doing the environment that surrounded the amphitheater. The first thing that I did was tried to model a single rock, because I thought if I put it in the scene, rotate it, maybe scale it, move it around, it will actually look like a mountain slash rocky environment. What I did for the rock was to create simple cube in Maya, added hundreds of edges onto it, and simply play with the geometry. I think it came out pretty nice. The second part of the surrounding environment, and the harder part, without a doubt, was creating foliage. It was hard mainly because I haven't made foliage at all or know how to make foliage. We had foliage in our project group last year, but our classmate Stephanie Moore did it and I had nothing to do with it. My first try at this wasn't very successful. I tried doing the leaves with decals, but I didn't like the way they look. Then I decided to make it simpler by just creating leaves and by duplicating them all over the tree. It didn't have many leaves, but by duplicating the trees and rotating them in the scene, you can barely notice. After finishing the whole scene, it was time to add cameras and do the actual cinematic. If I did that for the first presentation, it would have been easier for the second one, but unfortunately for me, I didn't. So I had to start from the beginning. When I looked at the tutorial, it looked easy, but trying to actually make everything work, that was the hard part. I had many problems with the matinee. The cameras were tilting in every direction at random points. Every time I tried to pilot the camera, it started rotating like a wild animal, so I had to close the matinee and reopen it again. I had it crash on me like every 5 minutes or so and close the whole engine, all at random points. Then I realized if I undo the making of the camera group in the matinee, it doesn't get rid of the camera in the engine, so at one point I ended up with 10 plus cameras. After long hours of trying to figure everything out, I finally got it to work and finished it. The other major problem that I faced, and in my opinion the one that really did me wrong the most, was time management. I didn't manage my time correctly at all. Planning ahead of the whole project didn't work for me, and I doubt it worked for everyone in the course at all. I had some personal problems that stalled me as well, and at the end of the semester I had so much work that I had to do. If I managed my time correctly and maybe had a short list of things to do every week or every day, I think I would be fine. At the end I managed to finish it, but at the cost of spending the last 2 weeks at uni every day till stupid o'clock. Time management is the key to everything. This was my final presentation, and thank you for watching.